This is New York Post reporting. I've checked it. I mean, I don't have any reason to doubt this. So, according to Post, the New York Socialist Movement, which is very well organized here in the city, Democratic Socialists of America, they are mobilizing 4,000 anti-ICE activists to stop any kind of ICE apprehensions in New York City, the largest in the country. 4,000. Now, this comes as no surprise to me because the Minnesota demonstrations are not organic. They're organized by far left people who are using the immigration and the ICE roundup to try to destabilize America. That's what they're trying to do. There is an opening there. All right, we saw that with George Floyd. It's the same kind of tactic. But they're not really as successful as they'd like to be. So let me run it down for you. Over the weekend, there were a few demonstrations, anti-ICE demonstrations. Minnesota, of course, Minneapolis, Broadview, Illinois, outside of Chicago, Denver, Portland, Maine, not Oregon, Maine, and a couple of others that, one in Jersey, I guess it's Morristown. But it wasn't much. And there was no violence, good. Few arrests, but not many. But this was not a populist uprising, and that's important to know. The Pentagon says it has alerted 1,500 soldiers that they may be needed to go to Minneapolis to calm things down there. And the reason is that Minnesota State Police and Minneapolis local police will not protect federal agents. That's pretty startling, pretty stunning. So if an Insurrection Act executive order was signed by the president, he would have very firm legal ground. So the state of Minnesota is in rebellion to the United States. I hope he doesn't sign the Insurrection Act. I hope that doesn't happen because that'll just inflame things. All right? It doesn't look to me like ICE got about 4,000 agents on the ground in Minnesota now, is in any danger of being overrun. But, it's obvious that the state has got to be dealt with. Here's the mayor of Minneapolis once again. Go.
Right now, we have about 600 police officers, and they've got 3,000 or so ICE agents and border control. That they are now talking about deploying 1,500 military. This is, well, it's ridiculous, but we will not be intimidated by the actions of this federal government.
All right, what's ridiculous is you, Mr. Mayor, telling your police department not to protect federal agents from harm. I mean, that's just disgraceful. It's awful. I mean, there's no other adjective to apply to it. Even if you disagree with the policy, you want federal agents to be heard? Is that what you want? Apparently, yes. All right, so there is in the city of Minneapolis a separation ordinance, which is totally illegal, okay, that says that the locals don't have to cooperate with the federal government. Totally illegal. But it's on the books there, just so you know. And I'll tell you, Minnesota's never going to recover from this, ever. So just being in Minnesota nice and let's go up and jump in the lake. I jumped in Rainy Lake and I had a great time up there. I'm not going back. There's nothing to get me going back to Minnesota. I'm not going to and spending money in a state that's in rebellion to the federal government. I'm not doing that. You don't think I'm alone. Polls. All right, so this is a CBS poll. Very simple. Right now, do you think the way Immigration Customs, ICE, is conducting its operations when it stops or detains people is too tough, 61%. Not tough enough, 15%. About right, 24%. So you got a plurality that says too tough. And I agree with that. I think ICE has got to bring it down a little bit. Okay? Not chasing criminals, but if it's a marginal situation, you let it go a little. You don't let it go forever. All right, you just take care of it later when its temperature is lower. Now, the Democratic Party is divided into moderates and radicals. The radicals run the Democratic Party. One of the radical senators, a man named Ruben Gallego from Arizona, who is hoping for a full rebellion. Roll that tape.
From my experience running in Arizona, in a very hard state when it comes to immigration issues, people want immigration enforcement that goes after criminals, right, and focuses on criminals. And immigration enforcement is actually focused on security and not the goon squad that has come from Stephen Miller and Donald Trump.
All right, well, that's totally ridiculous. So ICE agents can't adjudicate people's status in the street, okay? So they have targets that they're targeting criminals. And the stat that ICE put out about Minnesota is they've rounded up 1,500. That's a lot of people. 1,500 criminals, foreign nationals there. That's a lot. Anyway, Gallego, I don't know if he's smart enough. I doubt it. But you can't, if you're an ICE agent and you go in on a raid targeting someone who's a criminal, and there are 5 other people who don't have credentials to be in this country, you just can't let them go. You have to take them in, and then they're adjudicated from there. So it's just, ICE guy's going to go, okay, you're bad, you're good. He doesn't have the ability to do that, he or she. It's just so ridiculous. But that's the status of our politics today. Okay. Virginia. So the new governor comes in, Abigail Spanberger, replacing Glenn Youngkins. So Governor Youngkins said to Virginia authorities, you got to cooperate with the federal government when they're hunting down foreign nationals that they want to detain. You got to cooperate. Well, first day, Abigail, no, you don't. This is the Democratic Party. It was the same thing in if you know your history, and please read Confronting the Presidents, please. Because you had, states that go, hey, we're just not going to obey what you say. President Buchanan, President Lincoln. There's no difference. All right, so Spanberger does that, and now Virginia goes over into the sanctuary classification. Now, if you really add it up, what is this all about? The Democratic Party does not oppose open borders. If it did, it would have screamed when Biden was doing that. I'll give you some startling stats in a moment on Biden. But it didn't. It didn't. And to this day, the mainstream Democratic Party, it's okay, let everybody in. Let everybody in. They'll never admit it, but that's what they're saying, okay? And when you have a party, a political party, who basically doesn't want... Now, if the Democrats had any dignity, they introduce new legislation, new immigration law. Let's see what you want. Put it out. No, we don't get any of that. I'd like to see what the Democratic Party wants as far as immigration is reform. I'd like to see it. Wouldn't you? So we can debate it. Now, the media is firmly on the side of Democrats, has been since 1968, hasn't deviated one bit, and now it's crazy because they hate Trump. So this happened on CBS. Margaret Brennan faced the nation with Homeland Security Director Kristi Noem. Go.
Every single individual has committed a crime, but 70% of them have committed or have charges against them on violent crimes and crimes that they are charged with or have been convicted of that have come from other countries that are here illegally, first of all, and then they have committed a criminal act while they've been here or in their home countries as well.
It's not 70%.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so how do I know? I don't know. You don't know. And that is the weakness in Homeland Security. You've got to put it out. How you know that? Now, Brennan's never going to believe you no matter what you show her. She doesn't want to believe you. Now, keep that stat in mind, because I'm going to do a 60 Minutes thing in a moment that stat's going to come into play. Okay? So, Brennan, in the interview, I didn't use this part of the soundbite, but says it's 40% that ISIS is rounding up that have criminal involvement. Noam says it's 70%. American people don't know. And that's a weakness. And federal government has got to clarify that. So summing up here. So the radical left is using this to try to destabilize the federal government because they hate Trump. They hate everything that is in capitalist, you know, across the board. And this is an issue. But they're not making inroads yet. Another shooting of a mother. You got to be careful now. Federal government's got to understand that, you know, Americans are watching this. I think most Americans want robust immigration enforcement. I could be wrong, but I think they do. But they don't want violence and they don't want unfairness, and that's the memo. All right, now, there's been a lot going on foreign policy-wise in this hemisphere, and we'll get to Iran in a moment. But there's a guy that we like. He's a professor of history at the University of Arkansas, and he's got a book, John Quincy Adams, A Man for the Whole People. And Adams is very involved with foreign policy because he was an ambassador overseas in the early part of our republic. And Randall Woods, Dr. Woods, joins us now from Fayetteville, Arkansas. So you say, apparently, that John Quincy Adams would not have approved of Donald Trump trying to reshape this hemisphere to be more pro-American. Is that, do I have it correct?
No, I think that he would approve efforts to recreate the Americas to suit our interest. I'm not sure he would have gone about it in exactly the same way. You know, the Monroe Doctrine was both expansionist and isolationist. It was a warning to Europe, the Holy Alliance, to stay out of hemispheric affairs, but it was also a kind of statement that that the hemisphere was going to be, we were going to be the hegemon in the hemisphere and not Europe.
Right, but I would get an A in your class because my hand would go up and go, hey, doctor, did you know that John Quincy Adams was Secretary of State under James Monroe? How about that? Okay, yeah. That's an A. So that's when the Monroe Doctrine was forged, John Quincy Adams was standing right there going, yay. And now we have the Donroe Doctrine, which isn't that much difference than the Monroe Doctrine. It's really not, is it?
Yeah, it is. It's about the kind of threat. You know, the U.S.-Latin American relations is a history of U.S. intervention in Latin America, from the Spanish-American War, when we converted Cuba into a protectorate, to Theodore Roosevelt's Big Stick, and then Woodrow Wilson's missionary diplomacy. We intervened, you know, in the 1930s because of the threat of Japanese and Nazi aggression, and then during the Cold War to combat Castroism and the threat of Sino-Soviet imperialism. But I don't think there's the existential threat now.
Well, let me challenge you on that. Narcotics flooding into this country, killing millions of Americans over periods of time. And they're coming from nations in Central and South America. That's a national security threat, is it not?
Nobody's forcing Americans to take drugs.
No, that's true. But you have... No. Nobody forces anybody. And I have been very harsh on drug addicts because they're helping these cartels. However, that doesn't negate the threat to the country because we have a bunch of idiots that want to get high. And these cartels and Maduro and the Colombian guy, who's going to be neutralized very quickly, soon, These are people making money off hurting our country. So a president's supposed to just do nothing about it? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm not sure that's a good reason. I think that Maduro was a bad actor, is a bad actor.
No, he's a corrupt guy. He's got indictments all over the place.
Sure, but why don't we? There's a lot of other corrupt regimes around the world.
Well, you're doing a what about now? We'll knock them down one by one. You got Noriega out of there. It wasn't a scream policy then, and it's the same thing with Maduro. And now, did you know that Maduro seized, and along with Chavez in Venezuela, $19 billion worth of U.S. assets? And people are complaining about Trump seizing their oil or regulating their oil? What are you supposed to do? Just walk away, doctor, of $19 billion in theft? Is that what you would do?
Why did Donald Trump pardon the Honduran president?
What? Say that again?
Why did Donald Trump pardon a convicted drug dealer, the former president of Honduras?
Well, he did that for political reasons inside of Honduras, as I explained on this broadcast. And it was about getting a pro-American party elected. And this guy, this thug that we convicted, is still popular down there. And that's why he did it. It was a purely political move. So, but you can what about all day long. I'm not saying that everything Donald Trump does is correct. I'm saying the overarch of challenging anti-American countries that are hurting me, my children, my family, is a legitimate way to use our power. Last word.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I just think it's there's a better way to do it.
What better way? Then how would you stop all the tons of narcotics coming in here?
If you look at the history of regime changes during the Cold War, they used the CIA.
Well, that's what they're using now. The CIA ran that entire Venezuelan operation.
The CIA is an alternative to armed intervention.
The CIA designs the military operations, military action. The Pentagon carries them out. Anyway, very provocative. The book is John Quincy Adams, A Man for the Whole People. And I'm sure you knew this, Doctor, that John Quincy jumped naked into the Potomac River every day. You know, I don't know if that had anything to do with his foreign policy, but
absolutely.
He got a little brisk. Okay, final thought of the day. Got a very sad letter today from a concierge member. And remember, if you're in trouble, you come to us, and we'll try to help you. Concierge membership. The woman's broke. She's a widow. She got bills. She can't pay them. She doesn't know what to do. So she wants people to give her money. Okay. Now, it's my job to keep all of you, every person watching and listening to me tonight, in the real world. So I had to say, and I was so sad, I said, nobody is going to give you money. No one. Because they don't know you. They don't know your circumstance. You could be a con person. I don't think she is. I thought this was a very sincere letter. But that's not going to happen. Now, if you have family or longtime friends, they might help you out. Maybe. But strangers aren't going to help you out. I know they have these GoFundMe places. I got it. And once in a while, they can be effective. But if you are in dire circumstance, and this woman, it sounded to me like she was, I steered her to a place in her state that deals with people in trouble like this. And I said, go there, talk to the people, and report back to me on what they tell you to do. Because there are programs, particularly for the elderly, for senior citizens. There are programs in every state that can help you pay down debt, manage things like that. You just have to know where they are, and we'll give it to you. That's part of our service here. But the woman kind of thought that people were going to give her money to bail her out. Not going to happen. And even asking friends and family for money is so difficult. Not only for the person asking, but for the person on the receiving end of the request. Like this, you know? Because everybody's circumstance is different. everybody has got obligations. Generosity, we're the most generous people on earth, American, far and away. Second, Canadians. But we're way ahead of them. And we do give. But personal circumstances, mismanagement, things like that, very, very hard. Anyway, we'll help this woman. I don't know if we can help all her problems, but we'll try. Thank you for watching and listening to the No Spin News. There's no question President Trump is governing in a non-collaborative way. All right? That means his way or the highway. And if you don't like it, then you can take him to court or try to get Congress involved or whatever. But there is a method, to use a cliche, to the president's madness. So he believes he has a mandate. 77 million Americans voted for him to correct what the Biden administration screwed up, which is colossal. If you are any kind of fair analyst, just the border alone is so catastrophic. And President Trump says, look, the American people elected me to clean this mess up, and I'm going to clean it up. In addition, I'm going to impose a new world order on the globe. Foreign policy is going to be pro-American. I am going to create a country that is so powerful that few will defy it. But I don't need Congress to do it. And I don't need the courts because you can litigate all day long, but it just holds it up. Trump wants to go fast, and he has in his first year. He doesn't want Congress to be deliberating for 5 months, and he doesn't want it. So the question then becomes, is he overstepping his authority? Is the president overstepping? And that will be debated this year. Okay, 2026, you're going to have a lot of definition there. But in the meantime, Donald Trump's going to do what he wants to do. Full steam ahead on immigration, on foreign policy, and if he's blocked, he's blocked. Meanwhile, Congress is so partisan, it's really hard to get any alternatives out of them as far as, well, we have a better idea. We in the Senate have a better idea. No, you don't. If you do, it's a mystery. And I'm talking general across the board. All right, that's not my talking points. That's just setting up my talking points because we have three major stories in play here. Iran, ICE, and Denmark. And they're all very, very different. But President Trump's future hinges upon those three stories at this moment, and the economy as well. Okay, Iran. So right now, the Pentagon has worked up a number of military engagements there. It's just a matter of Mr. Trump's order. I don't know what they are. Nobody does. It's top secret. They've walled it off. There's no leaks. We don't know. I did talk to the president personally on Saturday, and I said, in my opinion, because I was asked, okay, I wouldn't use military action unless it's a tipping point. You don't need to send any more messages. You already did that with the nuke bombing. But if you can get them out of there, Mr. President, the mullahs, if you can get them on that flight to Moscow by, say, wiping out the Revolutionary Guard headquarters, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Got to get them out. And I believe it will happen. I think the mullahs are done. And that'll be a tremendous victory for the USA and the world. But I could be wrong. But anyway, the actions have been drawn up. We don't know when, where, we don't know. And it could happen at any time. Remember, Tehran, the capital of Iran, is 8.5 hours ahead of us. And this is not going to be a daylight action. These are going to be under the cloak of darkness. And so I'm going to be on it for the next, whenever it takes, watching. I check it every 30 minutes because all hell could break loose at any time. But again, I do believe the mullahs are done, and I really hope that's true. Okay, the second is ICE, which this is very interesting. The protests against ICE are not organic, as they say. It's not like everybody's running to the streets like Vietnam or anything like that. These are very well organized, far left generated protests. And the nexus, of course, is in Minneapolis, where Ms. Good was shot dead by an ICE agent last week. But this has not caught on across the country. Even though there are 10 states in active rebellion against the federal government, which I write about in my column on BillO'Reilly.com. Okay? This is a rebellion. It's not a protest. There's a big difference. Okay? They are refusing to obey the law. Now, the third one is Denmark. And I'm going to just take a little time at the end of the talking points to explain the danger for Donald Trump here. This is the most dangerous story. Denmark, not ICE, not Iran, Denmark and Greenland. That's the most dangerous for him. Now, getting back to Iran, there are, even before any military action, liberal Americans, Democrats, who say, well, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep going into Venezuela, grabbing a dictator there, and then you go and get the mullahs out of there. You need Congress to approve all this. And I debated Chris Cuomo on News Nation last night about that subject. Go.
Let me ask you something else, though. Iran, I don't understand a legitimate basis in law for any president to say, ooh, this regime, they're bad. I don't like what they're doing to their people. I think I'll use the military and not have to go through Congress. How can the president do that in Iran?
Under the national security banner. Because Iran, and we saw that with Soleimani when Trump took him out with a drone. I wrote about that in my book, Killing the Killers. Iran continues to fund worldwide terrorism and gives them billions of dollars, billions with a B. That's a national security threat to the United States. So under national security, if you can neutralize somebody like Soleimani or ISIS, as Trump did with the assistance of Barack Obama, you can do it without congressional approval. And that's what he'll use. And that's true. So the Democrats can jump up and down, they can sue, they can do this, they can do that. The president has the authority, based upon what happened after 9/11, to take out national security threats without getting permission. And he has. All right, that's what he's doing. It's all about national security. Drug dealing into the United States, massive amounts of narcotics, national security. Okay? Mullahs funding Hezbollah, Hamas, all the terror groups, national security. Courts aren't going to go against that at the higher level. The partisan courts will, but not up in the Supreme Court or even the appeals courts. Okay. Now let's get to Greenland. So today there's a meeting, closed door, and we don't have anything yet, and that might break. If it does, I'll tweet about it, at Bill O'Reilly. It's important you keep us on the band. So we don't know yet, but we know, obviously, a high-level meeting. Vice President's there, Vance, and Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, a meeting with the Danish Foreign Minister and his Greenland counterpart. Now, I fully expect them to work out some kind of deal, because if the United States invades Greenland with troops, which is, I can't imagine that would ever happen. I said that to President Trump. I said, this would fracture the NATO alliance. You can't do that. Putin would be a winner, because all the European NATO countries that turn against the United States, every single one of them. Maybe Hungary wouldn't, but that's it. You can't. And then the United States, American people don't want the U.S. military in Greenland. Every single poll shows that. And Republicans don't want it either. And then Congress, my God, they'll go crazy. And that would tilt it against the Republicans in the midterm. So there is a bill introduced by Lisa Murkowski, who's supposedly a Republican, but she's really not, and Senator Jeanne Shaheen in New Hampshire, that says you can't do this. You can't invade Greenland with U.S. troops. Now, that's going to pass the Senate. That bill is going to pass, and it might pass the House of Representatives. Now, Trump could veto it, but you can see the unbelievable deficit that President Trump would create for himself and the Republican Party. He doesn't have to do it. You know, I'm a cocky guy. You guys all know that. I said, look, send me over to Copenhagen. I'll come back with any deal you want in 48 hours. And I would. It's not that hard to get military bases up there. We've had them there in the past. Denmark's not going to object to that. mineral rights, we can get them. We don't need to put military boots on the ground there. So anyway, I expect the deal would be worked out. I'd be shocked if President Trump ever sends U.S. military to Greenland. This is his negotiating ploy. Huff and puff and blow the house down, and then we'll get a deal. That's what he always does. But this one's very dangerous. And that's the memo. Now, the media, of course, is sympathetic to the rebellion. And again, that column is on BillO'Reilly.com, and I hope you read it. The worst, let me just set this up. MS, we don't even monitor anymore here. We don't even monitor it. It's not a news agency any longer. It's separated from NBC News. They're entertainment. Okay? It's like the Food Channel. So it's the far left channel. We didn't pay attention. But CNN is a news agency. And the absolute worst on CNN is a woman named Abby Phillip, who is a colossal leftist and uses skin color to denigrate her opponents. Awful. Anyway, here's what she was up to after the Minnesota shooting. Go.
Is following ICE around a crime?
And number two, they are also being trained
ICE around a
to
crime,
actively
Scott?
impede. For the purpose of impeding them, yes.
Is following ICE around a crime?
For the purpose of impeding them, yes.
Okay, you weren't following ICE around. She was impeding the investigation with a vehicle. Okay, and everybody knows that. On the entertainment side, I just want to bring you one because this gets into social media. This is The View, of course. This is Disney ABC. Go.
Pete Hegseth started an illegal war for oil in Venezuela.
Right.
Stephen Miller threatened a military takeover of Greenland. Mm-hmm. RFK Jr. slashed childhood vaccine recommendations. And ICE shot and killed a United States citizen in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
That sort of adds up to me like a dictatorship in the making.
All right, there is no war in Venezuela. So, people make up whatever they want to make up. But again, this gets out there into social media, which is now the dominant delivery system of information to younger Americans. Conservatives do have their say. All right? So they're mostly on the radio, but they're on YouTube and things like that as well. Let's take Ben Shapiro first. Go.
The language that's been used about ICE, that they are terrorists, that ICE is the Gestapo, this sort of language leads to a permission structure specifically designed to increase ire at ICE agents and to undermine their capacity to fulfill the law in non-dangerous environments. That is why people are out trying to physically obstruct ICE officers from doing their job.
Well, there is incitement, but the ardent left, they sincerely believe there should be no border. Everybody should be allowed to come in here. That's an important point. Second guy is Matt Walsh. Go.
Now, you get the sense that for many of these left-wing terrorists, they've never suffered real consequences for their crimes at any point in their lives. And as a result, they're emboldened.
I'd be careful about calling all protesters terrorists. Okay? The woman who was shot and killed, Ms. Good, was not a terrorist. She's a misguided person who broke the law. She wasn't a terrorist. All right. Now, Portland, Oregon is the most radical left city in the country by far. I mean, really. I worked there. And it wasn't bad when I was there. I think I might have had something to do with that because I was anchoring the news. But now it's way, way out of control. And it's a shame. It's a beautiful town. Police chief is a guy named Bob Day. So this story disappeared because Border Patrol agents, not ICE, were pursuing two foreign gang members who are accused of a shooting in Portland, Oregon. Those gang members used their vehicle to try to run down the Border Patrol, and the Border Patrol shot two people. They're not dead. They're in federal custody. Listen to this soundbite from the Portland police chief. Go.
What I can say is there is an association with the two folks yesterday and TDA. I hesitated to even share this information initially because I'm very aware of the historic injustice of victim blaming, oftentimes portrayed by law enforcement, including this very agency that I've represented so proudly for so many years. And historically, we have not been quick to disclose the potential criminal history of others. But I felt it was imperative because I was asked yesterday in the news conference what information we have. This is information we have. This in no way draws a through line to the actions or the behaviors that occurred yesterday. I want to speak for just a moment specifically to my Latino community. It saddens me that we even have to qualify these remarks, because I understand, or at least have attempted to understand through your voices, your concern, your fear, your anger.
I mean, really, the Latino community wants violent Venezuelan gang members shooting up their town? Is that what the police chief thinks? This is what you got. In Portland, Oregon, in Minneapolis, in Boston, in Chicago, to some extent in New York City, some extent in Los Angeles, this kind of mentality. It's unbelievable. Okay. By the way, the two taken into custody, Luis Moncada. Okay, he's been arrested. He was let in on the Biden open border. He's been arrested a number of times. And a woman, Zambrano Contreras, who was accused of shooting at somebody. She's involved in prostitution, runs a prostitution ring, allegedly. Those are the two that they were chasing. And this guy's crying that he has to tell the people of Portland about their criminal history. All right, sports and entertainment. Again, this bleeds on over into the social media. Golden State Warriors head coach Steve Kerr, a notorious far-left guy. Go.
It's shameful, really, that in our country we can have law enforcement officers who commit murder and seemingly get away with it. It's shameful that the government can come out and lie about what happened when there's video and witnesses who have all come out and disputed what the government is saying. So very demoralizing, devastating to lose anyone's life, especially in that matter.
So Kerr convicts the ICE agents, no due process. What do you need due process for? Right, Steve? In totalitarian regimes, which is what you want, there's no due process. No, they were murderers. Right? It's embarrassing. The ignorance of Steve Kerr is embarrassing. He's ignorant. He's a fool. Sorry to use a kind of personal description, but it's true. And then there's the actor Mark Ruffalo, who's even more left-wing than Steve Kerr at the Golden Globes. Go.
This is for her. This is for the people in the United States who are terrorized and scared today. I know I'm one of them. I love this country, and what I'm seeing here happening is not America.
All right, I'm not terrorized. I'm not scared. So I don't know the difference here, but he's terrorized and scared. Okay. I was far more frightened when Joe Biden let 15 million foreign nationals into the country unsupervised. GoFundMe. So far, for Renee Good, the woman who was killed, $1,500,000 for her children. I hope that gets to the children. I hope the money gets to the children. Okay? Funds are supposed to be placed in trust for them. And then for the officers themselves, a bit more than $400,000 has been raised for ICE officer Jonathan Ross and his family. So there's GoFundMe stuff. All right, so that wraps up our coverage on that. Here is a final thought of the day. Watching the Islanders, my favorite hockey team, and this happened. Roll the tape.
Schaefer had his stick snapped and quickly was handed a stick. And now racing to the bench is Heineman to pick up a new twig. As he quickly handed his off to Schaefer. Barzal has it. And a puck floats off his stick, so the zone cleared by the factor. And that is Ryan O'Reilly. He is so good, they just called him the O'Reilly factor, right? He impacts every player he seems to play with.
That's right. That was his nickname in St. Louis. His teammates gave him that. They called him the, not the factor. That's a huge, huge compliment. And he certainly won the Conn Smythe. He's played international for Canada, Stanley Cup winner in St. Louis as the captain. He's earned that nickname.
Well, it's a compliment to us, that's for sure. And Ryan O'Reilly is a tremendous player. I got a call from Dennis Miller years back when he was at a St. Louis Blues game and Ryan O'Reilly was playing for the Blues. He said, hey, they're all chanting the factor when Ryan O'Reilly comes out. So thank you. That's all I can say. It's a nice compliment when you go Islanders, second place. Come on, we're watching them. Thank you for watching and listening to the First Place No Spin News. We'll see you again tomorrow.